Thank you. All right, welcome to AEM Tip 5. Today we're talking about Quality Indicator 4, which is what we like to call training accessibility heroes, because we're talking about best practices for teaching related to training and professional learning. So sorry, I have another window open here for breakouts. So thank you so much for joining us. We've made our way through quality indicators 1 to 3, onto quality indicator 4. And I also wanted to start by appreciating everybody taking time last week at the end of AEM Tip 4 to provide us some feedback on the AEM Tip series. And we don't have all of that feedback yet, but Judy was able to provide us with some feedback that she had a chance to go through, and so she gave us some qualitative information. We want to thank everybody for that. And one of the things that that's clear is that people really want more interactivity during these tips, and so today we have included some of that. We have some breakouts to look at some of the possible free, open types of resources that are available to support your training, your technical assistance, really at the state level as well as at the district level. So we'll have some breakouts where you can choose from some of these possibilities that we've identified. Some of them that are part of the built into the quality indicators, so give you a chance to explore those, and then in groups, and to be able to talk about them with others, as well as to share some of the resources that you use in your state or in your district related to AIM and accessible technology. What would be helpful, because we'll be doing breakouts, and one of the things that'll be useful for us to know is what state you're in. So if you would put on your Zoom name tag, and on your Zoom name tag, start with your state abbreviation and your full name. So my example there is Deb Fitzgibbons, who I used in the past because she comes to the, I think she's here probably today, and I didn't want to call out anybody who may not be here. Deb usually is. So the example there is Oregon and Deb Fitzgibbons. So just your state abbreviation and your full name. Don't forget that for all of these AIM tips, we have accompanying learnings, suggestions, experiences from the previous AIM cohort from 2014 to 2019. So take a look at, this was from March of 2019, I believe, and we heard from Daniel McNulty from the Patents Project in Indiana. We heard from Rachel Schultz and Jan Rogers from Ocala in Ohio, and we heard from Jessica McKay in Ysleta, Texas on this, for this particular webinar in 2019, but how some of their states are using their internal capacity, both what their state education agency is doing to support professional learning and technical assistance, as well as their Assistive Technology Act projects. So Indiana was talking about their patents project and some of the things that they're doing related to training. They have a grant project where they recruit districts through an application process and put them through, I think it's a 2 or 3 year cycle of professional development. Ocala in Ohio has an online learning series. They have modules. And Jessica McKay talks about a badging system that she used, using some of the online learning modules that the AIM Center that we developed a couple of years ago, and that we've actually revived as part of our new website, and that we'll share with you, and will be one of the options that you have to explore during today's tip. So just to situate where we are, the quality indicators, the 7 of them are listed here from a coordinated system, which we started on March 25th. Last week we talked about written guidelines. Today we're focusing on quality indicator 4, those learning opportunities and technical assistance that states and districts can take advantage of in building their system for providing AIM. Next week, we're going to be looking at data collection and data use, and then we'll wrap up with quality indicator 7, allocation of resources. So looking specifically at quality indicator 4 today, This is about providing those professional learning, technical assistance, training, whatever your state or your district refers to in terms of ensuring that there's continuous improvement and professional learnings for staff. That's what Quality Indicator 4 is all about. And what we would prefer when it comes to training and technical assistance related to AIM is that it really be embedded in some of those initiatives and those job embedded requirements and ways that any individual role or responsibility is working to improve services, teaching supports for all students, including students with disabilities. So the statement for Quality Indicator 4 is that both the state and the school districts provide or arrange for those comprehensive learning opportunities in NTA that address all areas of the provision and use of accessible materials and technologies that are accessible and high quality. And of course, pretty much every professional learning opportunity really does include something related to what are the materials, what are the technologies that are going to be used in the delivery of whether it's the professional development for teachers or technology integrators or administrators. So there's a modeling opportunity for that. What's accessible that's going to be provided in the professional learning opportunity. And then also whatever is going to be supporting students, is that accessible? So really there's an opportunity in just about every context when it comes to professional learning, training and technical assistance to include accessibility. The intent here is that these trainings, the technical assistance, the professional development is ongoing. So there's not a starting and an end point when it comes to supporting the continuous provision of accessible materials and technologies for students, but it's continuous and it's a part of all of the trainings, all professional learning. It draws upon multiple sources because we know that they're out there and offered in different forms. So thinking about these delivery of training from a universal design for learning perspective and using that also as an opportunity to model best practices for teaching and learning, and that these are comprehensive as well in terms of who are the recipients. So families, personnel, and the wider community. So we're going to focus specifically on critical component 4.3. You will see 4.1 and 2 really focus on who are the recipients of the professional learning, and really being comprehensive and creative when thinking about who within a system, either at the state or the local level, need to know about accessible materials and technologies. And we know it's pretty much everybody who has a role in supporting students. And then some of the best practices related to job embedded, as well as making sure that the professional learning happens in the context of teaching, making sure that all of the different areas of roles and responsibilities are included. 4.3 is about those sources. If you are at a state or a district and you're not sure what are the resources available to use to deliver professional learning and training and technical assistance, Critical Component 4.3 has some suggestions on where to start, and we focused on no cost or low cost supports. So when within the slide deck, and I'll drop the link in the chat in a moment, the slide deck includes all of the links to each of the examples that I'm going to show. So that's why I'm going to stop sharing and give you the link to the folder today that has both the slide deck and the quality indicators. These have the links to the 4 different options that we'll be exploring. And over to the chat. Okay, so that will take you to the SharePoint folder that has the slide deck and the K-12 quality indicators. Those will have the links to each of the following examples of resources, technical assistance that are part of the quality indicators. And then we will be going into breakouts. So as we're going through each of these examples, be thinking about which one resonates with you, that you want to know more about, because during the breakout, you'll have an opportunity to join some others who want to share it in exploration of going a little bit deeper into one of these. So the first one we're going to look at, of course, is our very own. As I mentioned, we have revived the online learning series that we developed in 2018. And they're not yet, but they're just fresh on our website. They eventually will be under the AEM Center resources section under Get Started. But for now, until they get there, you can do a search for online learning series up here in the search field of our website. And it'll be the first result that comes up. So these are 5 modules. We selected the topics based on thinking of what are all the possible areas that an educator, a digital learning specialist, an AT provider, an administrator, trying to be really comprehensive about across roles and responsibilities, thinking about the pipeline from the material and how it reaches students, or the technology and it reaches students. What are all the different best practices that are involved in that? And so we built each of these modules based on those best practices. So there are 5 of them, starting with introducing accessible materials and technologies, creating accessible digital documents, locating caption videos and creating your own, selecting accessible digital materials and technologies, and then finally, providing accessible formats for pre-K-12 learners. So what you'll find in these in the first one is really for those individuals who are just starting with understanding what the term accessible means, as well as what are some of the considerations for identifying what accessible materials and technologies are. And then under the next 3, these are really about thinking about accessibility from the perspective of everyone, and from a systems level, prioritizing from the beginning of providing accessibility for all students, not just students with disabilities. And then module 5, the providing accessible formats, that is for really targeted at special educators, IEP teams, accessible media producers, and others who really have a role in making sure that for students who have print disabilities, whether it's blindness and low vision, physical disabilities, learning disabilities such as dyslexia, what are some decision-making considerations and what are sources of accessible formats for those students. So these 5 modules are available for free on our website. They're self-paced. They're designed for independent usage. But we also, as we say here, we encourage state agencies, districts, teacher ed programs, universities, workforce agencies to provide these as part of a professional development program and provide credit for them. So for example, when we delivered these in 2018, that used the modules and provided professional development credit for them. So for example,
Cynthia, sorry to barge in, you dropped out for a second. So you may want to repeat that last piece.
Isleta School District, Jessica McKay, who was featured in that 2019 webinar on Quality Indicator 4, provided a badge system. Minnesota picked them up. The Maryland Department of Education provided credit. So our goal, we don't have the capacity to provide credit or to teach these, but they are now available for others to pick them up and provide that credit. Each one has activities that can be adapted by a credit-bearing agency, for example, to develop some products for. And we're also, back in 2018, we did get pre-approval from the IAAP, the International Association on Accessibility Professionals, to provide credit for some CEUs related to these. So we have resubmitted for getting the continuation of the credit through IAAP, and we're hoping to get that so that any credit-bearing agency that provides these modules, somebody who completes that can submit documentation to IAAP to get credits toward their certification with that organization. So we'll have a few minutes in a bit if you want to delve into the online learning series that we just launched. I think it was just on Monday or Tuesday. We got these posted on our website. Very similar. Some of you I know are familiar with this 5-module series from 2018, 2019, but you'll see they've been updated and the resources are now aligned with the resources on our new website. The next resource for training and technical assistance that we wanted to feature is your Learning Center subscription through ATIA. So as a reminder, every state in the cohort has a license for up to 40 seats for the ATIA Learning Center. What I'm showing here is Georgia's, but every state has a portal like this. So you have your portal. Our partnership with ATIA is annual. So this is your portal through September 30th. Again, I'm showing Georgia's, but every state has one, and I will provide you with your link if you want to dive into yours while we're here together for this tip. But there are a number of offerings through their online catalog, and this is searchable. So when you come into the ATIA Learning Center link through your portal, you will see the options for courses here. You can search the database. So for example, if I search reading, which is related to accessible materials, a number of results come up. So you can see here digital literacy supports a UDL perspective, AT supports for students with learning disabilities. So shared reading with ebooks for students with significant cognitive disabilities, dyslexia, and remote learning. So a number of really relevant, especially for today, are available. And of course, I just was choosing some that are no longer available for purchase. Just to note that when you come into your portal, go ahead and see what is available. I'm not sure if as part of your free membership, again, up to 40 seats for each state, whether or not some of these are going to be available. They may not be available for purchase, but they may be available through your membership. So if you want to take a look at your ATIA Learning Center subscription through your own personalized state portal, you'll have some time to do that. Also wanted to share with you our sister project at CAST, CITES, the Center on Inclusive Technology and Education Systems. And CITES, like the AEM Center, is funded through the Office of Special Education Programs. CITES is a little bit different from the AEM Center because it shares a mission in increasing the accessibility of the curriculum for students with disabilities. But CITES works specifically with a cohort of 7 districts. And our goal with CITES is to create a framework that demonstrates how assistive technology and instructional technology or ed tech or information technology systems can really coordinate and work together to ensure that from the beginning, what is considered around technology systems within a district is going to be accessible for everyone, including students with disabilities. So what we're doing with CITES is based off of the National Education Technology Plan. We're adapting it into a new framework that really shows specifically what are the practices related to leadership, to teaching, learning, and assessment, and to infrastructure that really supports an inclusive technology ecosystem. And of course, at the state and district level, that's really important when it comes to a consistent and reliable system for providing accessible materials and technologies. So the CITES framework is provided on the home page. There are 5 sections currently. You'll recognize these if you are familiar with the National Education Technology Plan, because these are the 5 sections of that. So over time, what we're doing with CITES is an iterative process of working with this cohort of 7 districts and implementing some evidence-based practices over time, starting with leadership. So the leadership practice phase of identifying and testing some practices related to leadership within districts that support provision of accessibility. That is where most of the time for the sites team and the work of these districts has happened. So when you go and look at some of the resources that are currently available, you'll see that they're related to leadership because that's been the primary focus through late last year, early this year. The project has now phased into looking specifically at what are some of those teaching, learning, and assessment practices that support inclusive technology ecosystems. And then we'll look specifically at families and how families are engaged in these systems. Not to say that any one of these, leadership, teaching, learning, and assessment, and families, happens in that type of progression. It's a spiral. So while we are focusing on specific areas of a system that supports accessibility and inclusive technology ecosystems, we are really focusing in on certain aspects over time and spiraling around. So you will see on the site's website that there are some stories related to best practices when it comes to leadership from our knowledge development districts. In this case, this was Bartholomew County or Bartholomew Community. Sorry, it is Bartholomew Consolidated School Corporation in Columbus, Indiana, and the other one was Tomball School District, Independent School District in Texas. So this provides a couple of examples at the school district context of leadership practices that support accessibility, AT, as part of inclusive technology ecosystems. And what has been learned from the leadership cycle over, which was about an 18-month focus, that part of the framework, some of the tools that have been developed as part of what will become a field guide for sites, that will be available in the next month on the website as well. So the sites framework is evolving over time. What's happening originally here, what you'll find for resources are specific to leadership, and teaching, learning, and assessment will come up behind. And you'll also see that there's an events page with some webinars that have been recorded. Most of these webinars are provided with co-presentation from either the framework development districts. Those are the cohort districts that SITES is working with closely on testing out some of the practices for the framework, as well as representation from those knowledge development districts that are supporting our identification of best practices to include in the framework. And then finally, something outside of CAST that I wanted to feature is the National Center for Systemic Improvement. This too is a project funded by OSEP, and I wanted to point it out because NCSI has a very comprehensive, robust resource library that I think both states and districts that are thinking about creating accessible systems for providing AIM and AT will really benefit from. So when you come to the homepage, you'll see that I just jumped over to the resources tab and the NCSI resource library. And then you can browse, or you can also, you can also do a search. But here's a section on FAPE and IEPs. A lot of what we know about when it comes to students who need AIM and assistive technology, a lot of that decision making happens at the IEP process. So I pull that out because you can see that there are a number of different ways that NCSI provides resources related to IEPs. So here's IEP goal data collection tool in choice making. There's a virtual assessment example for administering decoding and spelling assessments, IEP considerations for the current school year. And then if we go back and then look at, for example, distance learning, there have been a number of resources that have been added over the past year because of clearly the focus on the pandemic and the types of supports that states, districts, and families have needed. So there are resources specific to that as well. And then you can also filter by resource type, by language, by audience. So as you can see, it's just a really robust library that I think would be useful as you're thinking about, how does, nothing here is especially specific to accessible materials and technologies. But again, when you're thinking about the types of professional learning, technical assistance and training that really is provided broadly, fitting accessibility into any of these is really appropriate and relevant. And I can imagine that any type of training in TA that the state or district level you may be doing would benefit from some of the resources that NCSI uses. So having shared, those are 4 examples, and I wanted to give you some time to explore those. So I've set up 4 different breakout groups, and for each breakout group, there is one of these resources that you can choose from. And we're going to, you'll have about 20 minutes to do that in your groups. So the first group will be the AIM Center Online Learning Series. So if you want to explore our online learning modules, you can choose room 1. If you want to look at your ATIA Learning Center subscription, you would go to room 2. If you want to explore the CITES framework, that's room 3. And if you want to check out the National Center for Systemic Improvement Resource Library, you would choose room 4. And I have all of these listed. Let me, before you choose, here is, I'm going to share with you your the portals and the passwords for each of your, if you want to go, and it's just good for you to have if you haven't checked out your state's ATIA portal. Notice that they all have the same structure. So they're all www.atia.org, and then your state name followed by AEM. So whether you're going to be exploring the ATIA Learning Center subscription, during the time that we have now, or you want to go back later, and these were shared, during the kickoff. These are also within your folders. Your AIM State Leadership Team has these as well, but we thought this would be a good opportunity to remind you. And then for each of your your access codes, it's AEM, your state abbreviation, followed by 21. And as a reminder, every state has 40 seats, which really should be plenty for supporting your states and districts, with some leftover for the targeted TA groups and your interagency collaboratives. All right, and then in the PowerPoint, in the slide deck, it directs people to either your AIM State Leadership Team or to Leslie O'Callahan, our Operations Coordinator, for somebody who's watching the recording or stumbles across the PowerPoint, doesn't look at the recording. There's a direction within the slide deck. All right, so I'm going to see how this goes. I've set up 4 separate rooms according to these 4 different resources. I haven't done this in Zoom before. I've seen it done, so I know it's possible. We'll see how this goes. Modeling risk-taking in Zoom. So, but if it doesn't work, we'll figure out another way to get this done. So I'm going to open the rooms. Hopefully you'll see the 4 different options. You just choose which one you want to explore. Remembering that, here, let me drop the links. There's the link to the CITES webpage. Will take you to the events page, but you can get to the home page from there. NCSI, here's your link if you're choosing their resource library. And then if you're interested in exploring the AIM Center's online learning series, here's the direct link to that. All right, so I'm going to open the rooms. I have 20 minutes on the clock before we come back, share your findings, as well as your own resources that you would recommend for others. Okay, so are you seeing the options?
Yes.
Excellent. Is it working?
Yep. And
All right, looks like it's working.
if you've never done it before, if you hover over the name of a room, you should see a join link to the right of it, and that's how you move into that room.